Yo, what is going on YouTube? Today we are covering top 5 reasons my wife left me. But before we get into this video, can you guys go ahead and smash that like button down below, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're new, and drop a comment. Tell me why you guys think my wife left me down in the comments below. In all seriousness though, today we are covering top 5 infrared missiles in War Thunder. We're going to do SARs as a separate video, and I don't plan on ever mixing them for a video. We're just going to do IR and then top 5 SARs later on. Two important things to note before we start is that this list is just my opinion. It is completely subjective. Some of the missiles do things objectively better than others. Yes, this is true, but what you think makes a missile the best is entirely your opinion. Secondly, this is just missile comparisons. I am not accounting for the planes that the missiles are mounted on whatsoever. It's just considering missile compared to missile, not the airplanes that they come on. So let's get started. At number 5, I'm going to go ahead and start with the R60M. The R60M is just one of those missiles that you can't really ever go wrong with. They're just not necessarily the best, I don't think. Their flare resistance is not the greatest, not the worst. They pull extremely hard. They are specifically really good in close range. It's called a dogfight missile, I believe, after all, and they do work pretty well in dogfights comparatively to literally every other missile in the game. These things definitely have the best close range performance, second only to the SRAM, but that's not even top tier really, so we're not even going to cover that this video. So if your playstyle is up close and personal, you like getting in people's faces, the R60M is just going to have the performance that is going to be suiting your playstyle the best. On top of that, it is all aspect, so you don't have to be right behind people to actually launch the missile, which you're going to notice a pattern on this list. It's going to be pretty common. All aspect is an extremely useful tool to have, not exactly for the reasons that you might think it is. You know, they're good at shooting head-ons, sure, but nobody's really going to be dying to a head-on IR missile. They'll probably see it coming and they will flare it away. What they are really good at doing, though, is shooting from awkward angles that rear aspect missiles can do, just not quite as well as the all aspects can. There are a couple different ways that I think greatly increase your probability of getting a kill with a missile in War Thunder, and shooting from a weird and unexpected angle is definitely one of those things that are just up there in regards to it's going to definitely increase your chances of getting the kill. Though the missile's range is pretty much only like 2 kilometers or less in rear aspect if you're target and you are traveling at supersonic speeds, it's not that bad when you can use those awkward angles to launch with. You know, you can get up to 3.5 kilometer launches depending on the aspect you're shooting. You know, if they're kind of flying towards you a little bit, but you're a little bit off to the side from them so that they don't really see you. They're not paying that much attention to you. It's very, very useful in that regard. And using this clip, I'm going to try to demonstrate the close range capability of the R60M that no other missile at top tier really has. I'm dogfighting the F8U. I am occasionally trying to get my missile on target. I'm trying to get my guns on target as well. I probably could have killed him a lot sooner if I had just used my guns better, but I don't. So you see me lock him up here. I could probably launch it right now. I do. Unfortunately, he ends up pulling up a lot harder than I had anticipated. That one doesn't hit, sure. But look at the range we're at right now, 0.4 kilometers. He makes one wrong turn and it has good enough performance to go ahead and hit at just 0.5 kilometer range while making maneuvers. That's pretty impressive, but let's go ahead and move on to number 4. I think it is without question that the Magic 2 is of course going to make a top 5 best IR missile list. However, I think seeing at number 4 is going to be disappointing to some of you guys and probably think it's a bit of a hot take to have it at number 4. That is understandable. It is the highest pulling missile at top tier, I believe, at 35G. The next highest are of course your standard 30G missile, and at 35G you really do kind of feel that extra 5G of pull. Does it really make that much of a difference or not in whether your missile is going to pull in to hit the target? I don't think so, not really, at least not in my experience. Because at really close ranges, the Magic 2 isn't really a fantastic missile anyways, but every once in a while you get a kill in maybe a head-on or something where that extra 5G does come in handy. It's just not as nice or much of an improvement as you might expect, is what I'm trying to say. The flare resistance, from everything I can gather, is the exact same as the 9L. So If you know the 9L, it is a very flare-resistant missile. It is extremely difficult to flare that thing from a 6 o'clock launch, especially if you're going to be in something like the F-14, and the Magic 2 is no different. This thing is a pain in the ass to flare, which is something really nice to have at top-tier air right now, especially, like I said, with an abundance of F-14s playing. You really can't go wrong with the Magic 2, but there are 3 things that I really just don't like about it. They're pretty annoying, but in the end of the day, of course, it is number 4, so it's still a really good missile, but compared to the other ones, these 3 things just kind of kill it for me in the race. First thing is that it has an abnormally long time to arm. The missile doesn't actually arm itself for like 1.8 to 2 seconds after being launched, and so that means that if you launch it too close, the missile's actually just going to fly by its target and not blow up. Most missiles are like a half-second arm time, and as a result, they're a lot better at close ranges. Adding on to that, the Magic 2 accelerates very quickly, but it doesn't actually start pulling for roughly half a second to a second. I'm going to say probably a little bit closer to a half second. But since it accelerates so fast, it kind of shoots out away from its target before it even begins to pull, and as a result, sometimes it just can't quite make the arc that it needs to hit the target, even though you think it should. And lastly, I think that the Magic 2 just does not have a lot of range. It accelerates extremely quickly. You would think it does have a good amount of range, but once that burner cuts off, the thing just does not glide well at all. It has a pretty bad glide coefficient, at least number-wise, but nobody really knows what that means. In my experience though, I just don't think that it glides very far after the burner cuts out. This is the part where I bend the knee and pretend that the PL-5 is honestly what I believe to be the number 3 IR missile, just so I don't have to deal with the comments of people asking what the hell is wrong with me and calling me stupid. Not to say where I actually think it belongs on the list, but, you know, plus or minus a spot, you be the judge. And the PL-5 is undoubtedly the missile that I probably get the most kills with consistently at top tier. I think that this thing is extremely meta. The things that I think make a missile very potent at top tier is, 1, nobody knows it's coming, so no RWR. It's infrared guided, so check. Nobody's going to know it's coming. Well, what about visually? Well, to make it less likely that people see it's coming visually, it has to have a very short burn time, as in the motor has to burn out pretty quickly, and that missile marker disappears off the screen as quickly as possible. The PL-5 also has that. Check. Having good range also drastically increases your chances of getting a kill, because if you can reach out and touch somebody where they just don't expect you to be able to, that's going to be massive, because it's going to increase your chances and opportunities to be able to launch at people from those awkward angles I was talking about earlier that all aspects give you. And not only that, but the longer that missile is in the air, and the longer that it's in the air without that missile marker on it, I think that is drastically going to increase the chances of the missile actually hitting that target, because even if they do look back and see your plane, your missile is already launched, the motor's already burned, and it's gliding right for them, and they are none the wiser. I get more multi-kill scenarios with the PL-5 missiles than I do any other missile in the entire game. You can just pick up 1 kill, 2 kill, 3 kill, just like that, and you might get that ×3, ×2, maybe even ×4 pop up on your screen more often with the PL-5 than I think anything else in the entire game. They are 30 Gs, so they are still extremely maneuverable. They pull very hard, and their Seeker has a very large gimbal, so even at close ranges, despite the very fast acceleration, it performs pretty well because you're able to give the missile so much lead that you can kind of just do all of the pulling yourself and then let the missile fly to its target like a dart at even as close to 500, 600 meters. Very oftentimes the acceleration is so quick that people don't even have time to cut their afterburner and flare. And if you're not cutting your afterburner from 6 o'clock with the PL-5, it is going to ignore those flares. It's not particularly flare resistant by any means. It's pretty much the same flare resistance as the AIM-9G, but if you have your afterburner on, it will still find you. The only thing that this missile is missing in regards to being as meta as possible is the fact that it is not all aspect. It is close to all aspect in modern War Thunder because so many of your targets are going to be Phantoms and F-14s. It's pretty common to be locking onto these types of planes from the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position, so not quite head on, but really close, and I think that really does add some value to the missile. There is one missile left that we haven't mentioned, we will get to, that does pretty much everything as well or better than the PL5, but it is all aspect. You probably know what I'm talking about. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and get to number 2 missile, which is of course going to be the PL5B. The AIM-9L is what I think to be the second best missile in all of War Thunder. Pretty much everything I said about the PL5 applies to the 9L, except it trades some of that missile marker time for more range at a slower speed, and the burn time is longer, so the missile marker is there for a long time too. The flare resistance does help with that quite a bit, but honestly, I forgot to get clips for the 9L, so let's just go ahead and go to number 1, which is most of you probably expected this to be the number 1 IR missile in War Thunder. If you didn't, well, you probably just thought it wasn't going to count because it's kind of cheating. This is the PL5's older brother, essentially. It's all aspect, it's got a very short motor burn time, so it's pretty stealthy, and the range is very, very far. Think a PL5 that trades like maybe 6 Gs of pull in exchange for pretty much double the actual effective range. Probably everybody has been killed by some MiG-23 that climbs to space, shoots these things off, and even if you see the MiG-23, you probably didn't see it in time to catch that motor of the missile burning and be able to see the actual missile marker. And therefore, you never thought that you needed to deploy flares until you just randomly combust out of nowhere while you're literally staring at the plane that killed you. Not only is this the best IR missile in my opinion, but this is just the most meta missile in the entire game. The range on this thing combined with the flare resistance combined with the fact that it's still a 24G missile, I believe, which is more than enough. Most people don't even know it's coming, so the G limit isn't that important anyways. There's honestly just not really any kind of defense or counterplay to the R-24T because like I said, usually people just don't know it's there. The big downside is that you only get 2, but as mentioned, the plane is irrelevant for the sake of this comparison video, so it's number 1 on this list. Let me know what your top 5 list is for IR missiles in War Thunder down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.